Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Miss Brace here. Today we are going to learn how to use the distributive property and the FOIL method. Before we jump into that though, there are a few things that I do want to go over, some things that you would need to know before we jump into this. So if we recall from previous grades or previous units, you will need to know what x times x is. Now remember, when we have the same base and we're multiplying them, you just add the exponents. So they have an imaginary 1 as their exponent. So if I was going to multiply x times x, that would just be x to the power of 2, 1 plus 1. Okay, what if I have x times x squared? So if I have that, I'm just taking this exponent of 1 and adding it with the 2. So that would become x to the power of 3. Okay? If I have x squared times x squared, well then that's the same as me adding those two exponents together and keeping my base the same. So it will be x to the 4. Okay, so whenever you have a variable, could be an x, could be an a, could be n, doesn't matter what it is, you just add those exponents together. Okay, what if I have something like 4 times x? They don't have the same base, and there's nothing to do with exponents here. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to write them next to each other. I have 4x or 4 times x. We can still keep it together like that. Okay, what if I have 4x times 2x? What if I have something that looks like this? Well, you're actually going to solve the coefficients and the variable separate. So I'm taking 4 and I'm timesing it by 2, and that gives me 8. So I treat those two separately. And then I'm taking x and I'm timesing it by x, which I found I can just add those exponents. So it would be x squared. So together, 4x times 2x is 8x squared. Okay, so those are just some things you will need to know in order to solve or use the distributive property and to multiply polynomials. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to learn how to do is the distributive property. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, you're going to be given something that looks like this, a number that's outside of a binomial or another type of polynomial. And what you need to do is you need to take the outside term and multiply it by both terms on the inside. So for example, I'm going to take 6 and I'm going to times it by a. With what I just did over here, that would be just equal to 6a, or 6 times a, like that. Okay? Then I'm also going to take the 6 and I'm going to multiply it by a positive 8. So 6 times positive 8 is positive 48. So I just add 48. So that's my answer. That's it. I would just say 6a plus 48. That's all you got to do. Okay, what if we have a negative outside? Well, it's the same thing, only now we need to take the negative in with it. So I'm taking a negative 4 times a positive 1. Remember, a negative and a positive is a negative answer, so that would just be negative 4. And then I'm taking a negative 4 times 9x. Negative 4 times a positive 9x is a minus 36x. Remember, I just multiplied the two front coefficients. Negative 4 and a positive 9 is 36, and I just have that 1x there. There's nothing on the 4. Okay, so that would be it. Continuing on, I'm going to take this 6 and I'm going to multiply it by a negative 5n. So 6 times a negative 5 is a negative 30. And don't forget that we have this variable here. There's not one outside to multiply through, so I just keep that n. Then I take 6 times a positive 7. Well, that's a positive 42, so I just add 42. Okay, so treat them as two separate terms that you're multiplying. Okay, and write it as two completely separate terms, negative 30n and then a positive 42. So then it just works out to be negative 30n plus 42. Okay. All right, let's look at this one. I have 8, and I multiply that by a negative b. Remember, 8 times b is just 8b, but we have a negative, so negative 8b. And then 8 times a negative 4, positive times a negative is a negative, and 8 times 4 is 32. So that would be my final answer there. Okay. What about these ones down here? They're a little bit more complicated. So we have a 2x on the outside. So we have a number and a variable. So I still do the same thing. I take that number and I distribute it through both terms, okay? So I have 2x, and I'm going to times that by 4x. So once again, 2 times 4 is 8, and then x times x, remember, is x squared, because I'm just adding those invisible exponents of 1. And then I'm taking 2 times a negative 2, and that would just be negative 4, but we have this x here, so negative 4x. That would be your final answer. Okay. Similarly over here, we have negative 6a, and I'm going to times that by a. So remember, this is the same as a 1 being in front of here, so negative 6 times 1 is just negative 6, and a times a is a squared. Okay, then I have negative 6 times a positive 8, or negative 6a, sorry, times a positive 8. So a negative and a positive is a negative. 6 times 8 gives me 48, and I have that a here that I can't forget. And that would be your final answer. Okay, that's all that's to it. So if you could understand this, you're definitely ready to go ahead and watch my next video on FOIL method, where we dive into multiplying 2 binomials together. Okay, thanks for watching.